Well, it's all happening here in Palm Beach. We're just about to cross the bridge. I'm on my way to Mar-a-Lago. We're going to have an exit poll that comes out fairly shortly, which I find odd, because if it comes out at 5 o'clock Eastern time, it's then only 2 o'clock out on the West Coast. And I think an exit poll that could influence the way people vote is very odd, but hey, we are close to an exit poll of some kind. I have to say, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm feeling very, very bullish indeed. It's November the 5th, 2024. It's literally 2 minutes to 7. I'm on the outskirts of Scranton, which of course is Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe, his hometown. And you can see people are beginning to arrive. And it's interesting that these are working people, people in overalls, people in nurses' uniforms, stuff like that. It's quite interesting talking to people. There are more Trump signs on the lawn than there were 4 years ago or 8 years ago. He's not quite the feared figure that he used to be. Who's going to win? Well, Pennsylvania, there we are. The polls are open. They're open. I have to say, this state is key. From everything I'm seeing, early voting numbers, etc., I still genuinely believe that Trump will take this state. And if he takes this state, I don't see how he can't win the election.
The deepening alliance between Trump and Farage in the lead-up to the election could spell disaster for Keir Starmer and the Labour Party. This partnership between two of the world's most prominent populists is a powerful one. To punch against the political establishment, with far-reaching implications across the Atlantic. As Trump revives his America First rhetoric, Farage's renewed energy in pushing Reform UK's populist agenda puts Starmer in a precarious position, especially as he faces growing discontent from the British public over issues like immigration and national sovereignty. For Labour, this dynamic alliance could catalyze a formidable shift in political momentum, placing Starmer squarely on the defensive. Nigel Farage's appearance at Mar-a-Lago for Donald Trump's exclusive election night gathering is a bold move that speaks volumes. This isn't just a social call. It's a gathering of two populist giants with aligned political missions. Trump and Farage have both stood as staunch defenders of national sovereignty, vocal opponents of unchecked globalism, and champions of right-wing populism in their nations. The event underscores their alliance, a coordinated effort that stands in stark contrast to Keir Starmer's tepid leadership and wavering principles as Labour continues to flounder in the polls. Farage's presence at this high-stakes U.S. event sends a clear signal. He is no mere British political player, but a force on the international stage. For him, a Trump victory would be a boon for British interests, particularly in transatlantic policy realignment, areas where Starmer has shown little vision or backbone. Farage's belief that a Trump presidency would enhance UK-US relations underscores his commitment to meaningful change, in contrast to Starmer's listless attempts at placating an increasingly frustrated public. With notable figures like tech mogul Elon Musk expected at Mar-a-Lago, Farage is seizing a powerful networking opportunity, one that will allow him to connect with influential American business and political leaders, enhancing support for Reform UK and expanding his international influence, something Starmer could only dream of. The media spotlight is inevitable, reminding voters of Farage's enduring clout on both sides of the Atlantic. His alliance with Trump resonates with conservative UK voters who respect Trump's nationalist, anti-establishment stance, a stance Starmer seems unwilling or unable to take. For Farage, this visit is not only a nod to his populist roots, but a signal of his intent to revitalize Reform UK with bold, Trump-inspired tactics, making Starmer's Labour appear increasingly out of touch.
But just how confident is Donald Trump now that the polls have started to close?
I think Trump and Team Trump feel very confident, perhaps more confident than they felt even in 2016. There is definitely a sign out there that the turnout in the non-big city, urban, rural type areas, as opposed to the inner city urban areas, really big turnout in the rural areas. That's where Trump draws most of his strength. And some of the indications that we have, and it's very early yet, some of the indications that we have, not as many people turning out in the big cities cities such as Philadelphia, for example. So I think, no, Team Trump feel very, very confident indeed.
Page of The Telegraph today, Nigel, with your advice to Donald Trump, if the result is decisive, to not fight the result and to go play golf in Scotland instead. Do you think he's going to heed your advice?
No, he's not going to heed it at all. There's no chance of him heeding it. Do you know why? Because he's not going to lose. He's going to win. It's as simple as that. And interestingly, when he went today himself to vote at the polling station in Palm Beach, afterwards he said, look, if Kamala wins fair and square, she wins, that's me out of the game. So, you know, I think what I said was common sense. Is to go through, you know, a deeply contested result of this election. The country is divided badly enough as it is. Having said that, there are still some really big doubts about the way America conducts its elections. It does need to clean up.
Farage's emphasis on rural turnout cuts to the heart of Trump's 2024 strategy, mobilizing support in the regions where his appeal remains strongest. Rural America has consistently backed Trump, and with heightened turnout, the campaign aims to counter the influence of urban Democrat-leaning centers. This tactic, grounded in populist ideals and a clear appeal to the working class, highlights a profound disconnect in the UK, where Keir Starmer's Labour appears out of step with these very constituencies. Starmer has struggled to engage Britain's heartlands, a misstep Farage has capitalized on through his more populist messaging. Farage's observation that Trump's team feels a new level of confidence compared to 2016 is telling. While the last campaign rode a wave of anti-establishment sentiment, Trump's 2024 bid has adopted a more targeted approach, focusing on specific demographics and refining voter turnout. Farage, well, versed in populist strategy, seems to view this as a model. One Labour might consider if Starmer weren't so bogged down by indecision and a vision that appeals more to elites than to the working-class Labour was once built upon. His counsel to Trump to accept the election results with grace, win or lose, underscores Farage's focus on democratic integrity, even in an era of fierce political division. This call for stability and unity stands in stark contrast to Starmer's own lackluster leadership in the UK, where his hesitancy to confront issues like immigration and crime has alienated voters and cast doubt on his ability to lead with conviction. Should Trump win, Farage's alignment with him could prove pivotal for U.S. relations, especially on shared issues like trade and immigration. A Trump victory would give Farage greater leverage in promoting his reform UK agenda, bolstered by shared principles of national sovereignty and pride. In an era where Starmer's Labour has increasingly drifted from its working-class roots, Farage's association with Trump reinforces his position as a credible alternative, underscoring a commitment to both national identity and democratic acceptance that Labour has struggled to project.
You have a man from Europe, I don't know if he's here, I saw him backstage. What he did was, and what he is doing is sort of what we did a few years ago. He's doing a great job. He's he's always been my friend for some reason. He liked me, I liked him. And he's shaking it up pretty good over there. He was the big winner of the last election in the UK, and he's a very spectacular man, very highly respected, Nigel Farage. He's a little bit of a rebel, but that's good. You know, that's good. Don't change, Nigel.
The prospect of Nigel Farage serving as an unofficial ambassador, foreign secretary for the UK under a Trump administration is nothing short of electrifying and deeply unsettling for Labour. Farage's potential influence in Washington would be a massive political coup for Reform UK, highlighting the sharp contrast between their populist, sovereignty-focused vision and Labour's more progressive approach. For Keir Starmer and his team, Farage's presence would pose a daunting challenge, forcing them to prove how their policies could maintain robust UK-US relations without aligning with Trump's nationalist agenda. In this role, Farage would become a shadow diplomat, capturing media attention and positioning himself as a bold voice for British interests abroad. This prominence could significantly bolster Reform UK's profile at home, especially among voters frustrated by Labour's perceived inability to effectively navigate UK-US relations. If the public sees Farage successfully advocating for British interests, Labour's credibility on the international stage may suffer. A stark reminder of how Farage has managed to stay relevant, even outside the traditional corridors of power. However, while Farage's transatlantic influence could galvanize his supporters, it may also spark criticism from Labour and other opponents who view this as a destabilizing force in established diplomacy. They might argue that Farage's populist slant risks pushing the UK towards more divisive go-it-alone policies that lack the broad consensus typically needed in foreign affairs. This scenario would fuel a critical debate over the role of populism in UK foreign policy, challenging Labour to step up and present a compelling alternative that reassures both allies and the British public.
The only way to stop that is to smash the gangs, smash the terrorist gangs.
Latest Home Office figures show more people have crossed the English Channel in small boats so far this year than in the whole of 2023. This small village in England is divided, as dozens of asylum seekers have been moved into a local hotel.
The British government is going to pay France $577 million in a new deal to try to stop surging numbers of migrants.
The contrasting stances of Keir Starmer's Labour Party and Reform UK on immigration expose a striking fault line in British politics. Labour, led by Starmer, takes a more tempered approach, focusing on bolstering border security through practical measures like the creation of a border security command to disrupt smuggling networks. His dismissal of the Rwanda deportation scheme signals Labour's commitment to human rights norms, favouring policies that tread carefully around legal and ethical challenges. Yet, this caution may feel lackluster to voters demanding stronger action on sovereignty and border enforcement, a sentiment that Reform UK is poised to capture. Reform UK's position, on the other hand, is resolutely hardline, advocating for an exit from the European Convention on Human Rights, ECHR, as a means to secure Britain's borders. Their approach prioritizes a nationalist agenda, appealing to those who view international obligations as a straitjacket on Britain's autonomy. By championing policies like leaving the ECHR, Reform UK speaks directly to voters who believe that UK security is compromised by adhering to international frameworks, contrasting sharply with Labour's cautious diplomacy. For frustrated voters, Reform UK's zero-tolerance message could be a breath of fresh air. Their straightforward, uncompromising stance on illegal immigration is likely to resonate with those who see Labour's policies as timid. This is populism in its clearest form, a divide that positions Reform UK as the party willing to go the extra mile to tackle illegal entry head-on, potentially siphoning off those disillusioned by Labour's more moderate stance. At the heart of this debate lies the question of balancing security with human rights. A balance Reform UK argues is skewed under the ECHR. Where Labour aims to strike a middle ground, Reform UK views these international commitments as roadblocks to robust enforcement. The ideological rift is clear. Labour champions a cautious, cooperative approach, while Reform UK stakes its claim as a defender of sovereignty, willing to push boundaries to uphold national interests. Ultimately, this immigration divide is emblematic of the broader ideological clash, casting Labour as the steady but restrained choice and Reform UK as the unapologetic champion of national control. It's a divide that could reshape the political landscape, with Reform UK emerging as a beacon for voters who feel the mainstream parties aren't delivering on the issue of immigration. Thanks for watching. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the content. Share your feedback in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with our latest videos. Also, join our free Telegram group link in the description for uncensored discussion on important issues.